Well, for more on this and the rest of the day's political news, I'm joined by our panel. We have Coalition MP Jane Prentice. She joins us in our Brisbane studio. We've also got Kelvin Thomson, Government Labor MP, Labor MP, I should say. Kelvin Thomson, who joins us from Melbourne. Thank you both for joining us today for the first program.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, Kelvin.
Jane, I'll just start with you when it comes to the Murray-Darling. We heard there John Williams, according to the Wentworth Group of Concerned Scientists, he says the bottom line is there's not enough water that's going to be going through the system. There wasn't enough under Labor, there's going to be less under the Coalition ultimately flowing through the system. On what science is that based?
But just a sec, he did say he thought we're on the right track, and in part of this there is an inbuilt review mechanism. So what we're doing is we're getting on with the job, and the framework is setting out the requirements and standards. It's not going to have an adverse impact on the environmental outcomes, and in fact we expect that as a result environmental priorities will be boosted as well as the agricultural production. So it should be a win-win situation.
He did give a tick, you're right, to this particular element. It's a small trade of water in the northern part, if you like. Part of it's going from a wetland that needs to be drained out. Without going into too much detail, he ticked that off. But he said the bottom line is still there's going to be less water flowing through, much less than what is needed for the health of the Murray. So again, on that basis, 1,500 gigalitres of extra flows through the system when it should be 4,000. On what a scientific basis are those numbers the government's using?
Well, there has been a lot of input from all stakeholders, and we have got the framework which makes sure that the standards and requirements are met going forward. And as I said before, we've got the inbuilt review mechanism, so we've taken precautions and we're getting on with it. I think it'll be a win-win at the end of the day.
Well, farmers and irrigators are welcoming this move, but if you take something like the Murray and you get a bit of middle ground, I think it's fair to say the government and Labor was doing something similar, although they were going to give a little bit more money. Is the middle ground on this going to eventually dry up the southern parts of the Murray?
Well, that's why the framework sets out this sort of strategy going forward, and it can change. I mean, if we run out of water, we're not going to be selling water allocations. We're selling what water is available, having taken into consideration what the environment needs, and that's why the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, I wish someone had got the acronym a bit better with the H, could be called CHEW, that's why they will have that authority going forward to look at the best way of doing it, and that's why there's not a set in stone amount each time, and that's why there is that review mechanism, because water, like everything else, is not going to be the same every year, and we need to be flexible.
Kelvin Thomson, Labor did increase the amount of water that could flow through with those buybacks up to 1,700 gigalitres, but another part of your plan to ramp that up further was delayed right out until 2024. So in terms of Labor's attempt to increase what's flowing through the Murray, that's not really much of a high priority, is it?
I think the point here is that the Labor government and the people of Australia have gone through a great deal of blood, sweat and tears to put in place a plan which can restore the Murray-Darling Basin river system to health. And under that system, the idea of trading under the Water Act with the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder making the decisions about these things is perfectly feasible, but it does need to be based on the best scientific advice, and it does need to be transparent. And regrettably, this government has a poor history in regard to both scientific advice and transparency. So I think that if you're a South Australian, you'd be pretty nervous about this. The truth is that there's been a history of over-extraction from the Murray-Darling Basin, which has had adverse consequences on the quality and availability of water for people in Adelaide and South Australia. And secondly, if you're concerned about the Murray-Darling environment, you'd be nervous about this, because this government has been all the way through attacking environmental initiatives, whether it's the carbon price or the climate authority, or eyeing off the renewable energy target and the environment protection legislation, or cutting the environment part of the aid budget. This is a government which is on track to be the worst federal government in terms of environment protection since federal government started taking an interest in the environment over 40 years ago.
All right, we are going to have to go to a quick break. After the break, we will tackle the issues of Nauru and asylum seekers, and also the Commission of Audit. Stay with us.
make it a summer to remember with outstanding offers available across a select range of BMWs. From a dynamic hatch to an iconic SAV, the last days of the BMW Summer Sales Drive are on now at your participating BMW dealer.
Go beyond the expected in Europe and Britain with Trafalgar and Harvey World Travel. With exclusive insider experiences, you'll delve deeper into Europe and Britain. You'll hear stories from local experts, watch artisans at work and even dine with families in their homes. There's no better time to book your Europe and Britain 2014 holiday with Trafalgar's early bird savings of up to 10%.
We're Harvey World Travel, we're the travel professionals.
Looks like Mike's going to be off work for a few months after his accident.
Hope you'll be okay. But this is exactly why I've been on at you about income protection.
Hi, I really need to sort out some income protection.
I can give you a quick quote and help you apply right now with no paperwork or medical required. As an Australian resident, you can apply for an income replacement benefit of up to 75% of your regular monthly income, and your premiums are usually tax deductible too.
Sounds good.
So call Real Insurance now on 1300 158 602. We'll be there.
How much are you paying on credit card interest? Many Australians pay over $2,000 interest every year. Citibank can help. With this special TV offer, you could save $2,000 or more on your credit card interest. For a limited time, get 0% per annum for 15 months on balances you transfer to the Citibank Rewards credit card. You just pay a one-off transfer fee. 0% per annum for 15 months could save you $2,000 or more in interest. Plus, the Citibank Rewards credit card gives you benefits no other card can match, like a free bottle of award-winning wine every time you dine at hundreds of restaurants, and more. So don't pay more interest than you have to. You could save $2,000 or more. You just pay a one-off transfer fee and get 0% per annum for 15 months on balances you transfer to the Citibank Rewards card. So apply now at citibank.com.au/TV or call 13 28 58.
This summer, if you like the price of our powerful 4-stroke Honda generator, you'll absolutely love the bonus gift. Only at specialist Honda dealers.
I am the ill ease that you feel when you walk into a crowded room. So, do you think you know me?
Tonight on Reporting Live, Australians have enjoyed the good life, but now with mounting debt and a weakening economy, what is the forecast? How will the global economy impact our nation? That's tonight on Reporting Live.
Welcome back to Lunchtime Agenda. With me on the show today we have Labor MP Kelvin Thomson, he's in Melbourne, and also Government MP, Coalition MP Jane Prentice, who is in our Brisbane studio. Going to move on to the Commission of Audit. We had the Prime Minister Tony Abbott over the Christmas break talk about his 100 days in power. The opposition leader today speaking about his 100 days in opposition. He's spoken to a couple of newspapers and spoken in particular about his willingness to not just say no when it comes to the Commission of Audit, of course the government's review of spending and what is likely to be some recommendations of cuts. Well, Kelvin Thomson, Bill Shorten's saying that he's not just saying no. Obviously, he's said already some areas he doesn't want cuts in, such as health. So what's really on the table here? Where are some areas of fat that can be trimmed?
Well, I think the point here is that Labor is always prepared to be pragmatic and to act in the best interests of Australians rather than to act in an ideological fashion. I'm personally concerned that the Commission of Audit is all about representation from business. I think that's unbalanced. I think there should be other representation as well. And I think it's regrettable that we've had a whole series of things floated by representatives of business, both on the Commission of Audit and in other places such as the Productivity Commission and Infrastructure Australia, which were never the subject of discussion prior to the election. For example, lifting the retirement age, privatising Australia Post, charging people for visits to the doctor or to hospitals, charging people for using the roads. A whole series of things that were never the subject of discussion prior to the election are now being put on the table, and I think a lot of Australian people would be concerned about that.
Right, well, you've spoken about a lot of areas of concern where there'd be cuts. Labor's also said it doesn't want education touched, health touched. I mean, there are so many areas that are being ruled out. Surely it's up to Bill Shorten and Labor to say what areas, what is this middle ground Bill Shorten's talking about? What are areas he's prepared to say that are in need of a trimming or can handle that? Because isn't it Labor's responsibility to say what their platform is on this as well?
Well, certainly, but we have displayed a pragmatic approach right through the time we were in government and the time we were in opposition. We delivered an economy with low unemployment, low inflation, low interest rates, an economy that was the envy of many around the world, and we would continue to support pragmatic policies aimed at lifting our productivity, aimed at lifting the participation rate, designed to ensure that Australia does experience economic prosperity.
It's an economy though with a pretty serious structural deficit that's locked in. So doesn't that mean it's partly Labor's responsibility as the party that was overseeing this budget for 6 years to be proactive and say, well, there is this area we agree with that can be cut in. Not even naming one though, the opposition leader.
Well, we're prepared to support measures aimed at budget repair, and indeed we did this while we were in government. What the Liberals have done since coming to office have in fact produced a poorer financial and budgetary position by allowing some tax breaks and so on to continue. So we are certainly in favour of balancing the books, and looking ahead down the time tunnel, you do need to take decisions that balance the books. But some of the austerity measures that get proposed or wheeled out or trotted out are precisely the measures that have been tried in other countries and have conspicuously failed. So it's not the case that saying that what we have to do here is to engage in cuts and expect that that will give us a better budgetary position or economic one.
Jane Prentice, we've heard a bit about middle-class welfare. We've heard a little bit about from the now Treasurer Joe Hockey previously when he said that needed to come to an end. What about some of those so-called sacred eggs? We think of things such as negative gearing. Are they ever going to be tackled, do you think?
Well, that's why the Commission of Audit will be investigating a wide range of options. But of course, we've been left with the most incredible deficit by 6 years of Labor waste. And I just point out that we're paying $10 billion a year in interest only on the net debt left by Labor. So it's all very well for them to say we're not going to say no, but where are the cuts? Where are they going to support us? And if Bill Shorten's at all genuine, at all sincere, why isn't he supporting the repeal of the carbon tax, which would put more money into people's pockets? I mean, it's very basic. He says one thing but does another. So I call on him to actually put his actions where his mouth is and support our repeal of the carbon tax. Will Kelvin
I'd like to
support
move on. Kelvin?
One of the things that the Liberal government says it's going to do is to increase defence spending to 2% of GDP come hell or high water. Now, how is this consistent with a proper position of fiscal discipline to say that it's going to be 2% of GDP without reference to Australia's real defence and foreign policy circumstances? The measures that they have taken since coming to office have in fact damaged our budgetary position rather than improved it.
So is Kelvin saying Labor would cut defence even more?
I'm going to move on quickly.
It's not a question of cutting it.
I am going to move on quickly to events in Nauru. We know the country's kicked out its top 2 legal officers by order of the President. This is something that's happened. There is plenty of talk that there is essentially chaos within the judicial system there. Jane Prentice, this is a country Australia has very close ties with. The Nauruan High Court is, in fact, Australia's High Court. The country relies a lot on Australia just to essentially almost feed its citizens to get through day-to-day life. The Immigration Minister, Scott Morrison, who says it's up to Nauru. Surely this is an area Australia can have an opinion on.
Well, it's obviously an issue of concern, but I'm sure the Australian government, through both Scott Morrison's office and Julie Bishop's office, have offered Nauru any assistance. And I'm also aware that there's a judiciary system where they support each other in different countries. So I'm sure the judiciary here have made offers of assistance to Nauru. So the best outcome for this is to work with Nauru, resolve the issues and get things back in order.
Well, we heard the Immigration Minister say, though, it's essentially up to Nauru, and we're talking about a country that obviously hosts asylum seekers that were originally trying to get to Australia, were taken by Australian authorities to that island. Some of them are facing allegations in relation to a riot on the island. Now, conceivably, they could be sent back by this same court system back to their original country. So these are implications that Australia would be involved in. Is this not the time to have a pretty strong input on this, to try to step in?
But it's not a time to make preemptive comments. It's a time to offer assistance in the areas Nauru need it, and I think that's the best thing we can do.
Okay, you think that's, you don't think stronger words are necessary, or you're saying at least behind the scenes there should be stronger representations?
Well, I think behind the scenes we're liaising with Nauru to ascertain what the situation is, what has caused the problem and how it can be resolved as quickly as possible.
Kelvin Thomson, obviously Labor's been critical of another government policy within this area when it comes to towing back or turning back boats. We know there's no confirmation of it, but plenty of reports. But looking at this situation, when you do have, and this is the government argument, when you do have boats that originated from Indonesia that have Indonesian crew on board, the people on board, the asylum seekers, came through Indonesia, at what point can Australia stand up and say, well, hang on, this is not really in our best interests, we're not going to stand with this anymore?
The Australian government under Labor was very keen to ensure that we had a proper and strong scheme of border protection, and indeed measures which we put in place were reducing the number of boats prior to our losing office. I think it's very important in all this that we maintain a strong, healthy, working, cooperative relationship with the Indonesian government. I think that's pretty much an essential ingredient to success in this area, and I think it's regrettable that our relationship with Indonesia has deteriorated in the way that it has. This is a government that said it would be more Jakarta than Geneva. Well, the truth is that the sigh of relief in Geneva can be heard on a quiet night as far away as Melbourne, and the people in Jakarta are urging the Australian government to focus less on them and to spend more time looking at Geneva. The truth is we were promised a government that would be a government of grown-ups, but it's been all L plates and amateur hour when it comes to our relationship with Indonesia, which is as bad as it's been for over 15 years.
Okay, we are right out of time. I'm going to have to leave it there, but Kelvin Thomson, thank you for your time. Thank you as well,
to talk with you.
Jane Prentice, and thank you at
Tom.
home
Good
for
to
watching.
see you, Kelvin.
Thank you at home for watching as well. Do stay with us. Next up, coming up with all the news, sport and weather, of course, we'll have more of Newsday with Aaron Young.